Mabel Hart reached Bellweather Ranch at sundown to marry Cyrus Keene. Cyrus was gone. Before she could decide where to sleep, wool buyer Rafe Tolliver drove into the yard and announced that Cyrus had pledged her fair and expected labor against Bellweather's debt. If no one stopped him, Rafe intended to take her to town that night and put her to work paying it down. The ranch yard was already alive with lambing cries. Men moved through the mud with lanterns, and a newborn lamb cried somewhere inside the barn. Cyrus's brother Daniel came out carrying a lamb inside his coat, saw the marriage letter in Mabel's hand, and stepped between her and the wagon. "No man here will claim you for a debt he made," Daniel said. Mabel's fingers tightened around the paper. "Cyrus is gone." Daniel's grief answered before his words did. "He is. I'm Daniel Keene. Cyrus is my brother." Rafe Tolliver looked at Mabel as if she were another sack in his wool yard. "Miss Hart, I hold the fair note that brought you west. If the groom is absent, the obligation remains. I have a laundry room in town where a practical woman can work it down." Mabel felt heat rise in her face, but her voice stayed level. "I am not freight." Daniel kept himself between Mabel and the buckboard. The lamb inside his coat stirred, and he held it with one large hand as carefully as a teacup. "She is not yours to place. She is not Cyrus's to abandon. She is not mine to keep. Bellweather will pay what Bellweather owes after shearing, but you will not put her in your wagon tonight." Rafe's smile thinned. "After shearing, you have weak lambs, a roof lifting at the south shed, and no guaranteed crew. I can make a wool buyer look elsewhere with one letter." "Then write it in the road," Daniel said, "not in my yard." For the first time since stepping down from the freight wagon, Mabel saw something steady enough to lean toward. Daniel Keene was not charming. He was worn thin, blunt, and half covered in straw. But he had put himself between her and a man with power before he knew if she could help him, before he knew if she would stay, before he knew whether she would curse his family name and leave at dawn. Rafe glanced toward the barn. A bride with no groom is bad luck in lambing season. Mabel lifted her chin. A man who needs luck to be decent has worse trouble than lambs. One of the hired men hid a grin. Daniel did not. He looked at her with sudden surprise, and in that glance Mabel felt herself seen as something more than a mistake at the gate. Rafe snapped the reins and turned the buckboard hard enough to cut mud from the yard. His men followed, but one of them looked back toward the crying barn with unease. If you enjoy clean Western romances where trust has to survive real consequences, subscribe and ride along. When the wagon disappeared down the Basin Road, Daniel turned to Mabel. "You can sleep in my mother's room tonight. She is in the cookhouse, not ill enough to stop ordering us around. Tomorrow I will send you back to Larkspur with fare in your own hand." "And if I have nowhere better to go?" Mabel asked. Daniel's face changed again. Not pity, not hunger, something closer to pain. "Then we speak of wages. Work first, shelter second, choice always. I will not have another Keene man write a promise over your life." A crash sounded inside the barn. Daniel cursed under his breath and started back with the lamb. Mabel picked up her valise and followed before she could think herself out of it. "I was raised on a small place in Missouri. We had sheep before my father sold the farm." Daniel looked over his shoulder. "Can you stomach a lambing barn?" "I crossed Kansas beside a man who chewed tobacco and sang hymns off-key. A barn will be a mercy." That time Daniel almost smiled. Inside, Bellweather Ranch was warmth, fear, and motion. Lanterns swung from nails. Ewes shifted in straw pens. A gray-haired woman with a shawl pinned over her shoulders sat on an overturned crate, scolding a hired hand for wrapping a chilled lamb too tight. She looked Mabel over in one swift, sharp pass. "So Cyrus's letter found flesh," the woman said. Daniel's voice softened. "Ma." Ruth Keene raised one hand. "Do not ma me while a lamb freezes. Miss Hart, if you came to faint, faint outside." Mabel set down her valise, took off her gloves, and knelt beside the shivering lamb before Daniel could defend her. "Warm cloth, not wet, and don't hold its nose closed. It needs room to breathe." The hired hand blinked. Ruth Keene's mouth closed. Daniel crouched opposite Mabel and watched her rub life back into the little creature with two steady hands. Her sleeves were travel-stained, her hair was coming loose, and her future had just been broken in a yard full of witnesses, but she did not tremble until the lamb gave one stronger cry. Daniel had expected tears. He had not expected her courage to make the whole barn stand straighter. Ruth leaned forward. "Miss Hart, was it?" "Mabel Hart." "Mabel, then, tie that cloth loose." Daniel stopped staring and fetched the molasses water. Daniel rose too quickly. The hired hand laughed once, then swallowed it when Ruth looked at him. Mabel bent over the lamb and hid the small, impossible warmth that had risen in her cheeks. By full dark, she had been on Bellweather Ranch less than an hour and had already learned its wounds. Daniel owned the land with Ruth, but the spring clip was pledged against winter feed. Cyrus had carried letters to town, made promises, borrowed against Daniel's name, and vanished after writing Mabel that Bellweather needed a wife before lambing season. Rafe Tolliver held the store account, the wool wagons, and half the men's fear. If Daniel failed to deliver enough clean fleece by sale day, Tolliver could take the clip, press the note, and break the ranch without ever drawing blood. Daniel told her these things in short pieces while they worked, never making his brother's guilt into her burden. Every time he mentioned Cyrus, his voice turned flat. Every time Mabel looked up from a lamb or ewe, she found Daniel looking away a heartbeat too late. Near midnight, Ruth took Mabel to the small room off the kitchen. It smelled of lavender, lamp smoke, and old quilts. Ruth put a folded wrapper on the chair and an envelope beside it. "Daniel says this is fair money," Ruth said. "He took it from the tin he was saving for roof nails." Mabel stared at the envelope. "He should not have done that." "No, he should not, but my son has a stubborn habit of being decent when ruin would be cheaper." Ruth paused at the door. "If you leave tomorrow, leave without shame. If you stay a week for wages, stay without apology. If you fall in love with this place, make sure it is the place and not just Daniel's wounded eyes. A woman's pity can yoke her harder than a man's order." Mabel sat on the narrow cot after Ruth left and held the envelope. She had imagined a wedding room, a husband, a table where she belonged. Instead, she had a stranger's fair money, a lambing barn full of need, and a man who had said choice as if it were a fence he would guard with his body. At dawn, she found Daniel outside the barn repairing a gate hinge with wire and rawhide. Frost silvered the troughs. He had not slept enough to make his eyes clear. When he saw the unopened fair envelope in her hand, his shoulders tightened. "The freight wagon leaves at 9, he said. "Then I have 3 hours to earn breakfast." "Mabel." She liked her name in his voice and disliked that she liked it. "I will not marry a ghost, Mr. Keene. I will not be sent to Tolliver's laundry. I will not take roof money while your lambing barn needs hands. Pay me for a week. At the end of it, I choose again." Daniel looked toward the east pasture, where ewes moved like dirty clouds across the pale grass. "A week may make leaving harder. For me or for you?" The question slipped out before caution could catch it. Daniel's gaze came back to her, and the cold air between them seemed to warm. He did not answer quickly. That too was decent. "Both if we are careless," he said at last, "so we will not be careless." They were careful that morning, but careful did not mean distant. Mabel carried buckets, tore cloth strips, soothed Ruth when Ruth's joints stiffened, and learned the names of the hands. Abel Yost was a lanky hired hand, all elbows and fear of doing wrong. Vicent Arroyo, the shearing boss who had ridden in before sunrise to judge the flock, watched everything and promised nothing. He had silver in his hair, quick hands, and the guarded eyes of a man who had fed a family by knowing when not to anger buyers. "Tolliver says your clip may be short," Vicent told Daniel by the east pen. "Tolliver says many things that make him money," Daniel replied. Vicent looked at Mabel, "And this bride?" Daniel's tone sharpened. "Miss Hart is a paid hand if she chooses to be." Mabel wiped straw from her sleeve. "And a better hand than a man who judges before seeing work." Vicent's eyebrows rose. Then he laughed, low and brief. Maybe Bellweather got one useful thing from Cyrus after all. Daniel did not laugh. "Do not put Cyrus's doing on her." The defense landed harder than flirtation would have. Mabel turned away to hide what it did to her. She had been protected before by manners. She had been helped by obligation. Daniel's defense had neither softness nor show in it. It sounded like a line drawn with a boot heel. The first true trouble of the day came before noon. A ewe in the far pen rejected one twin and struck at it when it tried to nurse. Abel froze with the lamb in his hands. Ruth called instructions from the barn door, but the ewe would not settle. Daniel was across the yard lifting a fallen rail. Mabel stepped into the pen before any man stopped her. She did not force the ewe. She spoke low, moved slowly, and rubbed the rejected lamb with straw from the mother's bedding until the sharp new scent softened. Daniel reached the fence in time to see Mabel kneel in mud, her skirt ruined, her cheeks streaked with dust, waiting with a patience that made the whole pen breathe slower. The ewe turned, sniffed, let the lamb nudge close. Abel whispered, "I'll be blamed." "Not today," Mabel said. Daniel's hands gripped the fence. In that moment he wanted to ask her to stay more than he had wanted anything since his father died. The wanting frightened him. A woman abandoned by his brother did not need another keen man's hunger wrapped in kindness. So he said only, "That was good work." Mabel looked up, her smile was small and tired. "Then add it to my wages." "I will. And stop looking as if praise costs money." Ruth barked a laugh from the doorway. Daniel took off his hat and rubbed one hand through his hair. Mabel carried the accepted lamb to the straw and felt the day tilt in a direction she had not planned. That afternoon Rafe Tolliver returned with 2 account books and a notice folded into his coat. He did not come alone. 3 shearing hands rode behind him, men Daniel had expected for the week. Vicent watched them from the pen rail, expression hard. Rafe handed Daniel the notice. "Store credit closed until the spring clip is weighed in my yard." Daniel did not unfold it. "We have an agreement." "You had an understanding based on Cyrus Keen's assurances. Cyrus is gone, your bride is disputed, your flock is light, I protect my interests." Mabel stepped out of the barn with a pail in hand. "Do your interests always need a woman cornered to feel safe?" Rafe's eyes cooled. "Miss Hart, a laundry position remains open." Daniel moved one step, but Mabel spoke first. "My position is here for the week, paid, chosen, witnessed." She looked at Vicent. "Is that plain enough for working people?" Vicent held her gaze, his jaw worked, plain enough. Rafe turned on him. "Careful Arroyo, shearing crews eat by buyer trust." "They also eat by rancher pay," Vicent said, but he did not step away from Rafe. Not yet. Rafe smiled again because he heard the fear beneath the answer. "Sale day is 5 days off. Without my wagons, your fleece rots in sacks. Without my crew, your sheep carry wool into heat. Without my store, your men eat what is left in Ruth Keen's flour bin." Abel looked toward Ruth's flour bin. Vicent's eyes went to his 3 men. Nobody in the yard needed Rafe to explain what 5 days without food or wages meant. Rafe did not need Bellweather empty. He only needed it hungry until sale day. Rafe looked at Mabel. "And without Cyrus, she is an unpaid promise standing in your yard." Daniel's voice dropped. "Leave." Rafe climbed into the buckboard. "I will with my men." The 3 shearers hesitated, then followed him. Vicent stayed, but the cost of staying showed in his eyes. Daniel watched the wagon leave and did not move until it passed the cottonwoods. Then he folded the notice, put it in his pocket, and turned toward the barn like a man counting losses by touch. Mabel found him later by the broken south roof, where wind pushed at loose boards. "You should have let me answer more sharply." "You answered enough. He will come again." "Yes. And Cyrus." Daniel looked across the lower pasture. "Cyrus comes back when shame costs less than hunger." The bitterness in his voice told Mabel the wound was older than her letters. She sat on an overturned nail keg, leaving enough space that he could choose whether to come closer. "What did he promise you?" Daniel gave a short laugh. "Which year?" Wind moved through the roof gap. Below them, lambs called to mothers in 100 small voices. Daniel leaned one shoulder against a post and told her about Cyrus in pieces. A charming boy after their father died. A brother who could sell a horse twice and make both buyers apologize to him. a man who loved the idea of rescue but never stayed for fence mending. Last winter, Cyrus had begged Daniel to trust him with town errands. By spring, Bellweather owed Tolliver more than feed could explain. "And then he wrote to me," Mabel said. Daniel's face tightened. "Yes." "Did you know?" He met the question without flinching. "No, if I had known, I would have written to stop the letter." Mabel believed him, and that belief was dangerous because it made room for hope. Daniel seemed to know it. "Mabel, if you stay the week, I will be grateful. If you leave after, I will hitch the team myself. If you stay longer, it will not be because Bellweather trapped you." "What if I stay because Bellweather asks better than most places?" His eyes lifted to hers. "Then I will have to learn how to ask without taking." The next 2 days were hard enough to keep longing in its place. Lambs came early. Rain threatened and withdrew. Ruth's strength failed by afternoon and returned with anger by supper. Mabel worked until her palms roughened, then sat beside Ruth at night to mend torn sackcloth into lamb covers. Daniel found reasons to pass through the kitchen and no reason good enough to stay. When he did stay, he listened more than he spoke. Mabel told Ruth about Missouri, about a father who sold the farm after fever took her mother, about working as a seamstress in a room where every bride's dress belonged to someone else, about Cyrus's letters, which had been warm, funny, and full of Bellweather as if he had built it with his own hands. Ruth's needle stopped. Cyrus knows how to describe another man's labor until it sounds like his dream. Why did Daniel keep forgiving him? Because Daniel was 12 when his father put Cyrus in his arms and said, "Mind your brother. Some orders grow into chains if no one cuts them." Mabel looked toward the dark window. Daniel moved across the yard with a lantern, checking use before sleep. Who cuts Daniel's chain? Ruth resumed sewing. Maybe Daniel, maybe the truth, maybe a woman who knows the difference between mercy and surrender. On the 4th morning, a peddler brought a letter from Larkspur. It had been tucked in the mail sack under flower circulars and smelled faintly of cheap tobacco. Mabel recognized Cyrus's handwriting before Daniel did. Her stomach tightened. Daniel handed it to her unopened. "It is addressed to you." Mabel could feel every eye in the kitchen. Ruth, Abel, Vicent, who had come early to inspect the sheep again. Even Daniel, though he tried to turn away. She broke the seal. Cyrus had written 3 days before she arrived. He apologized in handsome phrases. He said trouble had forced him east for a short while. He told her Daniel was severe but honorable and would see her safe. He asked her not to hate him. Then near the bottom, he wrote the line that changed the air in the room. "Rafe has my note, but Daniel always finds a way. If you can persuade him to soften, all may still be well." Vicent stopped sharpening his blade. Abel looked at Daniel. Cyrus's private cowardice had just become something everyone at the table could name. Mabel read it twice. The second reading hurt worse because it made the first one clear. Cyrus had not only abandoned her, he had sent her as a plea Daniel would find hard to refuse. Cyrus had not sent for a wife. He had sent Daniel a weakness with a woman's name. Daniel's face went still. "I am sorry." Mabel folded the letter with precise fingers. "Stop being sorry for what he aimed at you. He aimed it through you." Then we both step aside. Vicent crossed himself under his breath. Ruth's eyes shone, but she did not cry. Daniel looked at Mabel as if she had just opened a gate in him he had thought was nailed shut. That afternoon, Mabel asked Daniel for work that would matter. He took her to the north pasture, where the bell ewe wore a cracked brass bell on a patched leather strap. The ewe was old, clever, and trusted by the flock. Daniel called her Queen Bess because Ruth had named her during a winter when no one else at Bellweather had known what to do. "If weather turns," Daniel said, "she will lead toward Willow Draw unless we block it. The draw floods fast. My father built an old willow fold above it, but we have not used it in years." Mabel studied the slope, the grass, the narrow path under the willows. Why not use it now? "Fence is weak, gate is buried, takes hands I no longer have." "You have mine." Daniel looked at her hands. They were red, scraped, and already stronger than when she arrived. He wanted to close his fingers around them. Instead, he gave her a coil of rope. "Then we dig." They spent 3 hours at the old fold. Abel cleared brush. Vicent watched from horseback, then dismounted with a sigh and began lifting rotten rails. By sunset, even Ruth had come out wrapped in a shawl to tell them which posts were original and which ones Daniel's father had cursed over. Work changed the ranch's fear. Not erased it, but changed it into motion. Rafe Tolliver rode up while they were dragging the old gate free. He surveyed the scene with irritation he did not bother hiding, planning to hide sheep in the brush now. Mabel leaned on her shovel, planning to keep them alive. Life is expensive when debt is due. Rafe turned to Vicent. Last chance. Bring your blades to my yard by morning, or I strike your crew from every contract between here and Juniper Ford. Vicent's hand tightened on the rail. His oldest son worked that crew. His sister's family depended on seasonal wages. Everyone knew it. Daniel opened his mouth, but Vicent spoke first. I will think on it. Rafe nodded, satisfied. When he rode away, shame sat on Vicent's shoulders as visibly as dust. For more frontier stories where hard choices reveal true character, subscribe for the next ride. Mabel did not scold him. She had known debt. She knew fear could make a good person look away before it made him cruel. She only said, if you go, take your honest name with you. Do not let Tolliver use it after he buys it. Vicent looked at her sharply. You talk like leaving is easy. No, I talk like staying ought to cost the right man, not only the woman with fewer choices. Daniel watched Vicent absorb that. He watched Mabel turn back to the gate without demanding victory. She did not win people by speeches. She put truth down and let them decide whether to step on it. That night the storm came closer. Clouds pressed low over Larkspur Basin. The ewes bunched near the lower fence. Daniel checked the roof until rain hid his hat brim. Mabel found him in the barn doorway after supper, staring toward Willow Draw. You think Queen Bess will lead wrong, she said. I think animals remember old shelter, even when old shelter will kill them. People do that too. He turned to her. The barn lantern lit one side of his face and left the other in shadow. Are you speaking of Cyrus? I am speaking of myself. Daniel went very still. Mabel held the fare envelope between them. I carried this all day. I thought if I kept it close, I could prove I was free. But I do not want freedom to mean running from every place that needs me. Freedom can mean leaving. Yes, she stepped closer, near enough to hear rain tick against his coat. It can also mean staying after the door is open. Daniel's breath left him slowly. Mabel, if I ask you what I want to ask tonight, I will be no better than the hunger that brought you here. Then ask me something smaller. His eyes searched hers. Will you stand with Bellweather through the storm, paid, free, with the wagon fare still yours? Mabel put the envelope back in her pocket. Yes. He looked down at her hand then, and she let him take it. Only her hand, only for a moment. His palm was rough and warm. He held her as if the holding was a privilege that could be revoked at any breath. That was why she did not pull away. The next morning proved that Rafe Tolliver did not need to stand in the yard to press his hands around Bellweather's throat. Abel rode to the Larkspur store for nails, lamp oil, and course meal. He came back before noon with an empty sack, a red face, and a paper nailed to the store side of his saddle. Daniel pulled the paper free. His mouth went tight before he finished reading. Ruth took one look and said, "He closed the account." "Closed and posted," Daniel said. Mabel looked from one to the other, posted where people could see. Abel nodded miserably. On the store door, on the feed room door, Tolliver's man said any merchant extending credit to Bellweather before sale day would wait behind him for payment. Ruth's hand tightened on her cane. Credit is one thing, shame is another. He uses both, Daniel said. Mabel reached for the paper. Daniel gave it to her, though she could tell he hated letting her read another wound Cyrus had helped open. The words were neat, cold, and meant for public eyes. Bellweather Ranch, spring clip under lien. Household labor note unresolved. Buyer caution advised. Household labor note. That was what Rafe called her. Not woman, not bride, not worker with a name, a note, something to be collected. Mabel folded the notice once, twice, and handed it back. Then he needs the town to believe I am either helpless or bought. The town can believe what it wants, Daniel said. My work is here. Your work is also the story men tell before they decide whether to bring wagons. Daniel looked toward the pens. Every delay had a sound now. A lamb calling too long, a loose board banging, Ruth coughing in the kitchen, fear wearing men's faces thin. Mabel took off her apron and shook straw from it. I want to go to Larkspur. No, Daniel said before she finished. She turned to him. You did not hear why. I heard enough road in it. That answer warmed and angered her at once. Daniel Keene, if choice always matters, then it matters when I choose a road you dislike. His face changed. The fear stayed, but he bowed his head a little under the truth. You are right. Ruth made a satisfied sound. Good, he can still be taught. Mabel would have smiled if the day had not been so sharp. I am not going to plead credit. I am going to buy needles, thread, and canvas scraps if any merchant will take coin. Then I am going to stand where that notice was posted and ask whether Larkspur Basin is so poor it must let Rafe Tolliver price a woman by another man's lie. Daniel's eyes narrowed. That sounds like fighting him in town. No, it sounds like refusing to hide while he speaks for me. I go with you. I expected you would. Ruth thumped her cane once. Take the Bay team. They still look respectable from a distance. And Daniel, if you speak before she does, I will know it from here. The ride to Larkspur took 2 hours under a hard gray sky. Mabel sat beside Daniel on the wagon bench with the fair envelope in her coat and Cyrus's letter buttoned into an inside pocket. Daniel held the reins with both hands, though the team knew the road. He looked like a man driving toward a hanging storm, not a store. You do not have to guard me with silence, Mabel said. I am trying not to guard you with orders. Silence is what I have left. She looked at his profile. Did you ever want something for yourself before duty named it? His hands shifted on the reins. Once. What was it? A small horse ranch south of Juniper Ford. No sheep, no store credit, no brother to pull out of trouble, just horses and enough acres that a man could hear himself think. Why did you not go? My father died. Ma needed the place kept. Cyrus was 16 and already good at falling toward cliffs. Bellweather was what remained. Mabel watched the road unroll, and now. Daniel gave a humorless little breath. Now Bellweather has used that know my voice, a mother who would haunt me if I sold it, a crew that still looks to me even when it should not, and a woman on my wagon bench asking questions that make a man remember he had a self before he had a duty. The words fell between them with more intimacy than touch. Mabel did not answer at once. Ahead, Larkspur's first roofs appeared, low and weather-silvered. At the store, Rafe's notice hung exactly where Abel said it would. 2 women stood near it pretending not to read. A teamster leaned against the hitch rail. The storekeeper looked relieved and terrified when Daniel came through the door. Mabel stepped ahead of Daniel. I am Mabel Hart, she said clearly. The household labor note named there is me. I am not pledged, sold, placed, or held. I work at Bellweather by wages and choice. If any person has business with my name, speak to my face. The store went quiet enough for the stove to tick. The storekeeper swallowed. Miss Hart, I have no quarrel with you. Then take the notice down where it names me. Tolliver holds paper on the account. Daniel's shoulder moved behind her, but he did not speak. Mabel loved him a little for that restraint and feared the love because it came too easily now. The account may stand, she said. The lie does not. A woman near the flour bin stepped forward. She was broad, plain-faced, and holding a bolt of brown canvas. My husband hauls for Tolliver. I heard him say Cyrus Keene wrote foolish, not that the woman agreed to it. The storekeeper looked from her to Mabel. Mrs. Dodd. Do not Mrs. Dodd me while you let a buyer call a woman inventory. She pulled the notice down herself and slapped it on the counter. Sell her thread. If Tolliver asks, say women still buy needles in Larkspur without his blessing. A low laugh moved through the store. Not loud, not safe yet, but real. The teamster at the rail stopped pretending not to listen. By the time Mabel paid for her thread, he was already looking at Daniel like a man reconsidering which road deserved his freight. For the first time, Rafe's notice cost him more than it cost her. Mabel bought needles, thread, canvas scraps, and lamp oil with coins from her own purse. Daniel bought nothing on credit. On the way out, the teamster by the rail touched his hat. "Keen," he said, "Juniper Ford buyer is taking spring wool through Saturday if a man can haul. Tolliver told folks the road was washed out, but my cousin came over it yesterday." Daniel stopped. "Juniper Ford Road is open." "Rough but open." That was not salvation. It was a crack in the wall. Daniel looked at Mabel and she saw hope hurt him before it helped. Rafe Tolliver came out of the livery as they climbed onto the wagon. He had heard enough, or someone had run fast to tell him. His eyes moved to the folded notice on Mabel's lap. "Public defiance suits you poorly, Miss Hart." "Then I will wear it until it fits." Rafe looked at Daniel. "You let her speak for your ranch now." Daniel gathered the reins. "She speaks for herself. Bellweather is fortunate when the truth helps us both." Fortune turns. Rafe stepped close enough that the team tossed their heads. "Ask Cyrus." Daniel's hands tightened, but Mabel put one gloved hand over his wrist, not to stop him as a child was stopped, to remind him of the open gate between anger and cost. He breathed once and eased the reins. They drove out with Rafe standing in the road behind them. Mabel did not look back. Daniel did. "He will strike harder," Daniel said. "Yes, you know that," and still pulled the notice. "He was already striking. Now at least I am standing where he can see me." Daniel looked at her then with such open feeling that the road seemed to narrow. "Mabel, I am trying with all I have not to love you too fast." Her breath caught. He looked back to the team immediately, as if he had stepped across a line and was punishing himself for it. That was not a fair thing to say. It was honest. Honesty can still burden. Mabel watched his hands, then let it stand beside the fair envelope, something true I am free to carry or set down. He nodded once. They rode the rest of the way with the sky low above them and the words alive between them. When they returned, Bellweather had shifted again. Vicent was in the east pen with two of his men, counting blades and arguing in quick, low Spanish. Abel was mending the lower latch with wire. Ruth had turned the kitchen into a canvas-cutting room, and 3 ranch wives from nearby places had come with scraps after hearing Mrs. Dodd's store speech before the wagon even reached home. News traveled fast when women approved the direction. Mabel stood in the doorway, startled by the sight of their hands cutting lamb covers, feed sacks, and storm wraps. Ruth did not look up. "Do not stare like a guest. Sit down and sew." One of the women grinned. "We came to see if Tolliver's household note could thread a needle." "She can also speak," Ruth said, "but sewing will help more before rain." The afternoon became a different kind of rescue, not public, not grand. Women stitched, men set posts, Vicent's crew sharpened blades. Daniel moved from barn to pasture to roof and back again, and every time he passed the kitchen, his eyes found Mabel's for one brief second. No one teased them. Perhaps Ruth's glare prevented it. Perhaps everyone felt the storm close enough to respect any small light. At supper, Vicent sat at Daniel's table for the first time. He ate slowly, as if accepting food meant accepting risk. "Tolliver paid my crew late last season," he said at last. "Short too. Men did not complain because he holds next work." Daniel set down his cup. "Why tell me now?" Vicent looked toward the kitchen where Mabel was wrapping Ruth's wrist with warm cloth. "Because she said a man should take his honest name when he leaves. I am tired of leaving mine in Tolliver's yard. If you stand with me and we fail, I cannot pay what he can block. If I stand with him and he wins, I am paid to be smaller each year." Vicent looked at Mabel then. "My crew stays through the storm. After that, we haul to Juniper Ford if the road holds." Daniel reached across the table and clasped his forearm. It was not a victory cheer. It was 2 tired men accepting the size of the cost. That night, Bellweather prepared as if war were weather. They moved sacks from the low shed. They tied roof boards. They dug the willow gate clear by lantern. Mabel sewed until her fingers cramped. Daniel came to the kitchen after midnight with rain already on his shoulders. "You need sleep," he said. "So do you." "I am used to ignoring sense." "Then I will not admire you for it." Ruth made a pleased sound from her chair, eyes closed but ears sharp. Daniel smiled faintly. "Ma, are you sleeping or spying?" "Both. I am gifted." Mabel laughed softly. Daniel's gaze warmed at the sound. For one stolen moment, the storm, Rafe, Cyrus, debt, and loss stood outside the kitchen door like beggars refused entry. Then Queen Bess's bell rang once in the dark. Daniel straightened. Again the bell sounded, not from the north pasture where she should have been, but lower, near Willow Draw. Mabel stood so quickly the chair scraped. "She is already moving." They took lanterns and went into the wet dark. The rain had not opened hard yet, but mist slicked the grass. Daniel, Mabel, Abel, and Vicent found Queen Bess at the draw fence with 6 ewes pressing behind her. The old latch had not broken by weather alone. Someone had cut the leather tie and tucked the loose end under the rail to look worn. Daniel held the cut strap in his hand. His face in lantern light was terrible. "Rafe," Abel whispered. "Or a man wanting Rafe's coin," Vicent said. Mabel knelt by the bell ewe. Queen Bess's flank trembled. A smear of molasses grain clung to the grass beyond the fence, a sweet lure laid where sheep would nose toward danger. Mabel touched it, smelled it, and looked up. "He does not need to wait for the storm to ruin you. He only needs the flock in the wrong place when it comes." Vicent crouched, touched the grain, and stood. "Weather didn't do that." Abel looked toward the road Rafe used and spat into the mud. Someone wanted the flock in Willow Draw before the rain arrived. Daniel closed his fist around the cut strap. "We move them now." They worked until gray showed in the east. No one spoke more than needed. Daniel kept Mabel away from the lowest bank, and Mabel led him until his caution slowed the line. Then she walked past him, took Queen Bess's bell rope, and led the old ewe herself toward the half-cleared willow fold. Daniel followed, not pleased, not stopping her. Trust sometimes looked like a man swallowing fear until the work was done. By sunrise, the first part of the flock stood above the draw. The storm waited, breathing behind the hills. At dawn, Cyrus Keene came home. He arrived on a borrowed horse with a split lip, a torn cuff, and the same blue eyes Daniel had, only softer in all the wrong places. Mabel knew him from his letters before he spoke. Charm still clung to him, battered but alive. He climbed down in the yard and looked at her first. "Mabel," he said, "I meant to return before you came." Daniel crossed the yard so fast Abel dropped a bucket. "You meant many things." Cyrus raised both hands. "Dan, I can fix some of it." "Some?" Ruth stood in the cookhouse doorway, white with fury. "Did you send that woman here as a wife or a lever?" Cyrus flinched. Mabel was glad. A man should flinch when truth found him. Rafe Tolliver rode in behind Cyrus at a slower pace, as if the timing had been arranged to bruise everyone at once. 2 wagons followed him. Their sides bore Tolliver's painted mark. The men driving them did not look proud. "Good," Rafe called. "The family is gathered." Daniel turned on Cyrus. "You brought him." Cyrus shook his head. "No, he followed me from town." Rafe took a folded paper from his coat. "Cyrus Keene has confirmed that the fair note, winter feed, and cash advance were taken against Bellweather's spring clip. He also confirmed that Miss Hart's labor was named as part of the expected household arrangement." Mabel felt Daniel beside her like a wall about to crack from holding too much weight. She stepped forward before he could speak. "My labor belongs to me." Rafe smiled. "Then use it to pack. The wagons are here for the clip. I will take possession before the storm ruins value." "The sheep are not shorn," Daniel said. "Then I take the flock under Leon until shearing." Vicent had arrived during the exchange. His horse stopped near the gate. Behind him came 6 shearers, not 3, men with rolled canvas tied behind their saddles and uncertainty on their faces. Rafe's expression changed by a finger's width. "Arroyo," he said, "I gave you instructions." Vicent swung down. "You gave me threats. I brought my crew to see which work was honest." The moment could have turned then, but Rafe had not built his power by missing weakness. He pointed toward Cyrus. "Ask the brother. Ask the man who signed. Daniel Keene hides behind women and old ewes, but the paper speaks." Cyrus looked at Daniel, then Ruth, then Mabel. His face folded under the weight of all three. For a breath, Mabel thought he would finally stand straight. Then he whispered, "The paper is true." Daniel closed his eyes. Ruth made a sound like something torn. Rafe's wagon men shifted forward. Mabel walked to Cyrus and held out his letter. "And is this true too? Did you send me here hoping Daniel would soften because I was standing in his yard?" Cyrus's mouth trembled. "I was afraid." "That is not an answer." He looked at Daniel. "Yes." The yard went quiet. It was not enough to defeat Rafe, but it changed the shape of the wound. Cyrus had not merely failed. He had used hope as a rope and tied it around everyone who loved him. Rafe snapped the paper once. Family sorrow does not cancel debt. Thunder rolled over the basin. Queen Bess's bell sounded from the lower pasture, quick and nervous. Daniel looked toward Willow Draw. Mabel did too. The flock was moving wrong. A sheet of rain swept across the yard. Abel shouted from the fence. The lower gate had swung open where the old latch had cracked under pressure. Ewes poured toward the draw, following the bell. Lambs stumbled in their wake. In another hour, floodwater would fill the low channel. Rafe saw the movement and smiled without warmth. "There goes your clip, Keene." Daniel ran for his horse. Mabel ran for the old willow gate. No one ordered her. No one carried her. She had seen the slope, felt the mud, learned the ewe's path, and remembered the fold Daniel's father built above the draw. She shouted for Abel to bring rope, for Ruth to keep the weakest lambs in the barn, for Vicent's men to open the brush side and not the low side. Her voice cut through rain because she did not plead. She knew what had to be done. Daniel heard her and changed direction. That was the first proof the crew needed. A rancher in crisis trusted the abandoned bride's plan with his flock. Vicent saw it too. He threw his reins to one man and shouted in Spanish and English until the shearers moved. Rafe cursed from the wagon. "Any man who touches those sheep against my leon will not work my yard again." Vicent turned in the rain. "Then your yard will be quiet." The crew broke for the pasture. Willow Draw was already running brown. Mabel reached the old fold knee-deep in grass and rainwater. The buried gate dragged against mud. She pulled until her palms burned. Abel reached her side. Then Daniel was there, shoulder to the post, coat dark with rain. Together they forced the gate open just wide enough for the first ewes. Queen Bess came down the slope too fast, bell clanging. Mabel stepped into her path with both arms wide. Daniel shouted her name, fear cracking through it. The old ewe swerved, not much, but enough. Mabel moved with her, guiding instead of blocking. The flock bent toward the open fold. Water rose around Mabel's boots. A lamb caught in brush near the low bank. She heard it before she saw it. Daniel was pushing the gate. Vicent was turning ewes. Abel was slipping in the mud. Mabel went for the lamb. The current was not deep enough to sweep a horse, but it was strong enough to steal footing. Mabel grabbed the branch above the lamb and reached down. Cold water rushed over her wrists. The lamb kicked. Mud gave beneath her left boot. Daniel saw and left the gate without thought. "Hold the gate," Mabel shouted. He stopped because she commanded it, not because fear left him. She pulled the lamb free and shoved it up the bank toward Abel. Then her boot slid. Daniel's hand caught her forearm. For one breath, all the storm narrowed to that grip. "I told you to hold the gate," she gasped. "I told myself many things," he said, hauling her clear. "That one lost." It was the wrong moment to laugh, so Mabel did not. But the sound rose in her chest anyway, wild and alive. Daniel kept hold of her only long enough to know she stood. Then he let go and went back to the gate. The flock turned. 100 ewes, then more, pushed into the old fold instead of the flooding draw. Vicent's crew made a human line along the brush. Ruth stood at the barn door with a lantern held high, a fierce old figure calling men by name and shaming them into courage. Even Cyrus moved, though no one praised him. He dragged a broken panel into place and took a kick from a panicked ewe without complaint. Rafe Tolliver drove his buckboard toward the wool wagon, not the flock. Mabel saw him from the fold. He and one hired man were cutting the traces on Daniel's smaller wagon, the one needed to move weak lambs and sacks under cover. Rafe was not waiting for law, paper, or sale day. He was taking the means of survival while everyone else fought the storm. Mabel pointed, "Daniel." Daniel looked, and the fury that crossed his face could have burned the rain. But he could not leave the gate. If he did, the flock would break. Mabel understood the choice before he did. Bellweather needed the gate held more than it needed Daniel's anger. She ran for the yard. Her wet skirt slapped her legs. Mud pulled at her boots. Rafe's hired man reached the wagon seat with Daniel's trace chain in hand. Mabel seized the U-bell strap she had carried from the broken latch and swung it over the wagon brake. The brass bell rang once, loud and sharp. The horses startled, not enough to bolt, but enough to make the hired man drop the chain. Rafe turned on her. "You foolish woman." "No," Mabel said, breathless. "I am the witness you thought had nowhere else to stand." Abel came behind her with 2 shearers, then Ruth walking hard with her lantern, then Cyrus soaked and pale. Rafe saw the faces and tried to gather his old command. "That wagon is under my claim." Mabel lifted the trace chain from the mud. "Then claim it in front of the men whose lambs would die without it. Claim it in front of the crew you threatened. Claim it while Bellweather's flock is still crying in floodwater." Rafe reached for the chain. Cyrus stepped between them. It was the first brave thing Mabel had seen him do. It was late, it was not enough, but it was real. "No," Cyrus said. Rafe's eyes narrowed. "You signed." "I signed debt, not theft." Cyrus looked at Daniel across the yard, still holding the gate in the rain. Shame tore through him where everyone could see it. "I used her letter. I used your name. I used Ma's trust. I will sign away my share of spring profit, and I will work Tolliver's debt under Vicent's eye if the crew will have me. But you do not take the wagon while lambs are drowning." Rafe struck him with the back of his hand. Not hard enough to injure beyond pride, but hard enough to show every man in the yard what his paper had always meant. Control, humiliation, obedience. Vicent saw it from the fold. He left 2 men at the line and came through the rain with his shears wrapped in oilcloth. "My crew will not shear for a buyer who hits debtors and steals rescue wagons." "You will never work my routes again," Rafe said. "Then we make new routes." Vicent looked to the other men. "Juniper Ford still needs wool. Larkspur women still need cloth. A buyer is not God because he owns wagons." Rafe pointed at his 3 hired men. "Hook that wagon." Nobody moved. "I said hook it." One man set the trace chain on the ground. Another pulled his horse away from Tolliver's buckboard. The third took off the small badge from his coat that marked him as a yard man and put it on the seat before Rafe finished threatening him. Rafe looked from one man to the next. Nobody reached for his reins, his trace, or his claim. He looked around for the obedience that had always arrived before. This time, nothing came. Daniel arrived then, soaked, breathing hard, with mud to his knees and Queen Bess's bell silent behind him because the flock was finally inside the fold. He looked first at Mabel, standing by the wagon with the trace chain in her hand. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Angry." "Good," his voice shook. "I know what to do with hurt less than anger." Rafe tried one last time. He lifted the folded claim above the rain. "This paper gives me the clip." When Rafe lifted the lien again, nobody stepped toward Bellweather's flock. Mabel took Cyrus's letter from her pocket, soaked at the edges but readable. "And this letter shows the promise that brought me here was used to pressure Daniel. Cyrus has admitted it. Your man saw you try to take the wagon before any shearing. The crew heard your threat. If you want Bellweather's wool, you can buy it after honest shearing at honest weight with the men paid first." Rafe laughed. "You think a wet letter and a woman's mouth can change credit?" Ruth Keene lifted her lantern higher. "No, but a basin can change where it sells." Vicent nodded. "My crew shears Bellweather at dawn if the storm breaks. We haul to Juniper Ford with Keene wagons and Arroyo teams. Tolliver can keep his yard and count the dust." Daniel stepped closer to Rafe. His hands were empty. His voice was low. "You will leave my ranch without my wagon, without my flock, and without her name in your mouth." He drove out alone. Behind him, the wool wagon stayed in Bellweather's yard, and the men who had arrived wearing his marks went back to saving Bellweather's sheep. Mabel stepped forward. Tomorrow it is weighed. Cyrus stood with rain running down his face. No one comforted him. That was right. Some sorrow had to stand in public before it earned a chair by the fire. The hours after Rafe left did not feel like triumph. They felt like work finally pointed in the right direction. The men who had stepped away from Tolliver's wagon stood uncertain in the mud, aware they had burned one bridge and had not yet built another. Mabel pointed them toward the weakest lamb pen. You too, if you know wagons, you know canvas. Help Abel stretch cover over that corner before rain comes through. One man blinked. You ordering us now? No, offering you a better place to stand than beside a man who steals trace chains. He looked at Daniel. Daniel did not answer for her. That mattered. The man took off his coat and went to the pen. Cyrus stayed by the wagon after Rafe's wheel tracks filled with rainwater. His cheek was red from the blow. His eyes followed Daniel, but he did not dare ask for comfort. Ruth passed him once with a bucket and stopped. If you are waiting to be told you are still loved, you will wait until work is done, she said. Cyrus swallowed. Yes, Ma. If you are waiting to be told work can buy back what you spent, do not insult me. It can only prove you are done spending other people. He nodded again and took the bucket from her. This time Ruth led him. Daniel saw the exchange from the gate. Mabel saw him see it. The old chain in him pulled hard. Brother, duty, blood. The command spoken over a 12-year-old boy and never recalled. Mabel went to him through the rain. You can love him and still make him pay, she said. Daniel did not look away from Cyrus. I do not know how to do both. Then learn one day at a time. You told me choice always, give yourself one. His mouth moved as if the words had reached a place no one touched often. When did you become braver than all of us? On the road here I was frightened every mile. I got tired of giving fear the reins. A lamb cried from the fold. Daniel turned, but before he left he brushed his knuckles against hers. It was quick, almost hidden by rain. It was also the most tender thing he could have done in a yard full of cost. The night settled into labor. Vicent divided men into watches. Ruth kept a list beside the stove, not of debts, but of names and tasks, because she said a person who did brave work deserved to have it spelled correctly. Mabel moved between barn and kitchen until the line between her body and the ranch blurred. She fed coffee to men who had threatened to leave. She wrapped lambs. She sent Cyrus to dig drainage beside the south wall, then checked the ditch herself because forgiveness did not make a poor ditch drain. Near midnight, Daniel found her sitting on a feed box, her head tipped back against the wall, eyes closed. A lamb slept in a basket at her feet. Her hands lay open in her lap, red and swollen. Mabel, he said softly. She opened her eyes. If another you needs convincing, tell her I am currently negotiating with my own bones. No, you eat this. He held out a tin plate with bread, beans, and a piece of apple Ruth had been saving. Mabel looked at it, then at him. Did Ruth send the apple? She said if I brought it back, she would feed it to the stove and blame me for waste. Mabel took the plate. Daniel sat on the floor across from her, leaving the narrow aisle clear. He looked too large and too tired for the space, and yet he fit there because he chose not to crowd her. Tell me about the horse place, she said. His eyes flicked up. Now, if storms can make demands, so can I. He leaned his head against a post. It had a creek that ran even in August, cottonwoods on the south line, a black mare I wanted to buy from a man who did not know what he owned. I thought I would build a 2-room house first and a proper barn second. Foolish order, maybe. Why foolish? Stock pays. Houses only hold what you already have. Mabel broke the bread in half and handed him the larger piece. A house can be a promise to stop wandering. That pays too. Daniel accepted the bread as if she had handed him something more fragile. Would you have liked it? The horse place. Yes. Mabel considered answering lightly. She could not. The hour was too honest. I might have, but I am meeting you here, not there. I do not want a dream you gave up before I knew your name to become another ghost between us." Daniel's face softened until weariness could not hide it. "Then I will stop offering ghosts." "Good, Bellweather has enough." They ate in quiet while rain stitched the roof. The lamb in the basket stirred. Daniel reached to steady it, and Mabel's hand met his there. Neither pulled away this time. They let their fingers rest together against the basket rim, warm over new life, while the storm worried at the walls. "If I stay," Mabel said, "I will want work that is mine. Not only your wife's work if that day ever comes, not only Ruth's helper, mine." Daniel nodded. "Name it." A lambing room that becomes a sewing room after spring. Covers, saddle cloth, shirts, repairs, maybe trade with Larkspur women who are tired of Tolliver's prices. The tiredness left Daniel's eyes by a little. The old tack room has light in the morning. "And leaks. I can mend leaks. Can you accept a wife who sends bills?" The word wife crossed the space before either of them could pretend it had not. Mabel looked down at the plate. Daniel stayed still. "If she chooses the title," he said, voice rough, "I would accept bills, arguments, and every blessed scrap of thread she brings with her." Mabel's throat tightened. Outside, someone called for Daniel. The moment ended, but not as a disappointment. It ended like a coal banked under ash, ready to warm the next room. The storm lasted until midnight. Bellweather Ranch did not sleep. They moved weak lambs under the patched roof. They counted ewes by lantern. They set warm cloths, boiled coffee, and hauled feed from Ruth's emergency barrel. Mabel worked beside Daniel until her body felt made of rain and straw. Once, near the cookhouse, he touched her elbow to steady her. She leaned into the touch for one breath, and then stood on her own. "Still free?" he asked softly. She looked at the barn, at Ruth's lantern, at Cyrus carrying sacks under Vicent's instruction, at Abel asleep for 1 minute against a post before jerking awake. More than yesterday. By dawn, the storm had broken. Bellweather looked bruised but alive. The old willow fold held. Queen Bess grazed near the repaired gate with her bell strap drying over the fence. The clip was not lost. The lamb count was lower than Daniel had prayed, but higher than any man expected after the draw flooded. Cyrus signed before breakfast. Ruth wrote the words because her hand was steadier than his deserved. He signed away any claim to spring profit until Mabel's fair note, Daniel's feed loss, Ruth's roof money, and Vicent's crew risk were repaid. He signed to work under wages, not family favor. He signed that Mabel Hart owed him nothing and had never owed him anything. When he finished, he looked at Mabel. "I am sorry." Mabel folded the paper. "Be sorry with your back and hands. Words are too light for what you spent." Cyrus nodded. Tears stood in his eyes, but no one let the tears pay. Vicent handed him a pair of work gloves and pointed toward the ruined south fence. Shearing began under pale sun. Vicent's crew worked fast and clean. Daniel moved among the pens with the stunned focus of a man who had expected to lose everything and instead had to learn how to receive help. Mabel kept the lambing records beside Ruth, not because paper saved them, but because every living creature deserved to be counted after a night that tried to erase them. Shearing did not begin as a clean victory. It began with wet wool, sore backs, and the knowledge that every hour of delay gave Rafe more time to poison the road ahead. Vicent tested the first ewe himself and shook his head. "We shear only what is dry enough," he said. "Rush it and the fleece spoils in the sack." Daniel looked toward the sky. "How many by noon?" "Enough to prove Bellweather is alive, not enough to pay all." The answer cut, but it did not make Daniel foolish. He nodded. "Then we do honest enough by noon and more by dusk." Mabel heard the difference in him. Yesterday, he would have tried to carry the whole season on his own back. Today, he let the truth stand in front of other people and did not apologize for needing them. That, more than the wool itself, made Bellweather feel changed. She took Ruth's list and moved through the pens with Abel. Every sack received a name mark for the man who filled it, not just the ranch brand. Vicent insisted on that. "If Tolliver says my crew stole time, the sack tells who worked," he said. "And if he says Bellweather hid wool?" Abel asked. Mabel tied the sack mouth. Then he can explain why his men left their yard marks in our mud while trying to take an empty wagon. One of the former Tolliver men, a narrow-faced fellow called Creel, looked up from a fleece. Shame moved through his features. I was one of them. The pen went quiet. Daniel stopped at the gate. Creel swallowed. He told us Keene had sold the wagon already, said the woman was going to town and the ranch was done. When she stood there with that chain, I knew different. I should have known before. No one hurried to comfort him. Mabel respected that. Too much easy comfort could turn confession into performance. "What will you do with knowing?" she asked. Creel looked at the wool in his hands. "Work it clean, tell it clean at Juniper Ford, take no Tolliver badge again." Vicent nodded once, then sheer. Creel bent back to work. It was not absolution, but it was direction. Mabel wrote his name on Ruth's list and saw Daniel watching her. His gaze held gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. He was seeing how she made room for repair without letting repair become escape. By late morning, the sun came through in weak silver. Steam lifted from barn boards. Wool sacks lined the wall like squat gray sentries. Ruth sat beside the doorway with the wage book open on her knees, entering marks in a hand that shook only when she was angry. Cyrus worked the worst jobs. He hauled wet straw. He cleaned the ditch. He took orders from Abel without protest. Once he paused near Mabel as if to speak. She kept tying sackcloth until he understood that work, not another apology, was the only language she would hear that morning. Daniel brought her a cup of coffee near the east fence. "You have not sat down since dawn." "Neither has Ruth." "Ruth is powered by judgment. You are not." Mabel took the cup and nearly smiled. "You are learning jokes under strain. That is promising." I had a teacher arrive at my gate with a marriage letter and no patience for foolishness. The warmth between them came quickly now, but it did not feel reckless. It had been hammered in rain, debt, work, and choice. Mabel looked at the wool sacks, then at the fold beyond the barn. "When the wagons leave, Rafe may try the road." "I know. Let me ride with the first wagon." Daniel's expression closed, not in refusal exactly, in fear learning old habits. Mabel held up one hand. "Before you answer, remember Larkspur." He breathed out through his nose. "Choice always, I remember. I dislike it with my whole soul at the moment, but I remember. I can speak to Mrs. Dodd's cousin at Juniper Ford if he is there. I can say why the clip changed route. A woman Rafe named as a note standing beside Bellweather's sacks will make his lie smaller. It will also put you where he can aim more anger. He has aimed it already. I prefer to see the barrel of a lie, even when no weapon is raised." Daniel looked pained. "Do not use words that make me imagine harm." "Then do not make me argue twice." He gave a short, helpless laugh. "You are merciless." "No, I am going to Juniper Ford." He looked toward Ruth, who was pretending not to listen. Ruth did not lift her head. "If you ask me to forbid her, Daniel, I will throw this book at you and miss only because my wrist aches." Mabel drank her coffee to hide a smile. Daniel surrendered with dignity. "Fine, you ride the first wagon, I ride beside it. Vicent leads. Abel stays with Ma. Cyrus stays with Abel and does what he is told." Cyrus, passing with a forkful of straw, nodded once. The fact that he did not object did more for Daniel's temper than any apology had. The first loading became a ceremony no one named. Each sack went on the wagon under Ruth's eye. Vicent's men tied the load. Creel checked the wheel pins twice, then stepped back so Daniel could check them again. Mabel climbed onto the wagon seat with the ledger wrapped in oilcloth, Cyrus's signed restitution folded inside it, and her fair envelope still in her pocket. Daniel mounted beside the team. He looked at her as if every open road in the territory had gathered under that wagon wheel. "Still free?" he asked. "Still here," she answered. "That was not my question. It is my answer until I choose another." His smile was brief and beautiful. "Then I will take it carefully." They reached Juniper Ford near afternoon. The road was rough, as the teamster had promised, but open. No grand town waited there, only a feed yard, a scale shed, a general store smaller than larkspurs, and 3 wagons from ranches that had also grown tired of Tolliver's prices. News had outrun them. It always did when money and defiance rode the same road. The buyer at Juniper Ford was a spare man with spectacles and ink on his cuff. He looked at Daniel's sacks, at Vicent's crew marks, and at Mabel on the wagon seat. "You are the woman Tolliver named in that notice," he said. Mabel climbed down. "I am the woman who answered it." Vicent coughed into his hand to hide approval. The buyer looked over the sacks. "Wet weather discount applies if the wool is damp." Daniel nodded. "Fair, we ask fair weight in cash to crew first." That last phrase made the buyer glance up again. Men asking crew first were rarer than men preaching honor after profit. The weighing took an hour. Mabel stood where she could see each sack lifted. She did not understand every number, and she did not pretend to. What she understood was reaction. The buyer's clerk tried once to mark a sack short without opening a twisted mouth. Mabel caught the movement because sewing had taught her to see tension in tied cloth. "That mouth was retied after weighing," she said. The clerk flushed. "It makes no difference." The buyer looked sharply at him. Vicent stepped closer. Daniel did not speak over Mabel. She untied the sack herself and showed the inner fold still dry, the outer edge damp from the wagon cover. "It makes the difference between weather and carelessness. Bellweather will accept weather, not carelessness." The buyer corrected the mark. The clerk did not meet her eyes again. Vicent gave one quiet nod to his men, and the nod traveled down the line faster than praise. Bellweather had not begged for mercy at Juniper Ford. It had demanded fair weight and received it. It was a small thing. It did not defeat Rafe. It did not erase debt. But small, honest things stacked together could make a road strong enough for wagons. When the cash box opened and Vicent's crew received first pay, the men looked at one another as if someone had changed the taste of the air. Daniel took Bellweather's portion last. He counted enough to pay immediate feed, roof boards, Mabel's wages, and a hard first bite out of the Tolliver account. Not freedom entire, but freedom with boots on. The buyer folded the receipt and wrote Bellweather's name in his own book while the crew watched. It was not a court order. It was not a speech. It was a working man with ink on his cuff treating the ranch as real business after Rafe had tried to make it sound already dead. Vicent saw it. Creel saw it. Mabel saw Daniel's shoulders lower by a fraction, as if one strap of the winter load had finally been cut. That small public act mattered, because everyone there could carry it down a different road. On the ride home, Mabel held the wage envelope Daniel had made for her. Her name was written across it in his hand. Not household note, not Cyrus's bride, Mabel Hart. She looked at the letters until the road blurred. Daniel rode beside the wagon, too little. "No." "Then why that face?" "Because I did not know how heavy a name could feel when it was handed back clean." Daniel removed his hat and held it against his thigh for a long moment. "I wish I could have kept it clean from the start." "You helped me clean it myself. That matters more." He looked away toward the basin, and Mabel saw him fight for composure. She let him have the silence. Love, she was learning, was sometimes the mercy of not watching a person too closely while they were being changed. At noon, 2 more wagons left for Juniper Ford, not Tolliver's yard. Vicent rode with the first. Abel rode with the second, proud enough to sit taller than his bones allowed. Daniel watched them go, then removed the old Tolliver store tag from the feed room door. He held it a moment as if measuring the winter it represented, then set it in the stove. Mabel stood beside him. That was satisfying. Not as satisfying as paying cash at Juniper Ford will be. The silence changed. It was no longer the silence of work undone. It was the silence of a question waiting its rightful time. Daniel stepped back enough to leave air and choice between them. "Mabel Hart, will you let me court you properly, and will you stay for me only if staying is what you choose?" "Yes," she said, "I will stay for you, but I keep the fair envelope until I no longer need proof that I could leave." Daniel's smile came slow and unguarded. "I would expect nothing less." If this clean, romantic Wild West tale stayed with you, subscribe for the next frontier love story. Rafe Tolliver did not return that week. Bellwether's wool had been weighed at Juniper Ford, Vicent's crew had been paid, and 3 neighboring ranches had asked Daniel how to reach the same buyer. Cyrus worked the south fence until blisters opened and healed. Ruth gave him supper after work, not before, and never let apology take the place of repair. Spring moved over Larkspur Basin in small, stubborn signs. Grass thickened along the old willow fold. The south roof held after Daniel, and Mabel patched it with juniper boards. At the kitchen table, Mabel wrote her own name in the wage book beside the lambing count, and Daniel never once reached to guide her hand. On the first clear Sunday after sale day, Mabel carried Queen Bess's polished bell to the rebuilt gate. She buckled it onto the U and opened the gate herself. Daniel waited one step behind until Mabel turned and offered him her hand. Then the flock moved into spring pasture, and Mabel walked through the open gate beside him.